I'm ready. Whenever you guys are. Seven.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me, Colleen?
I can hear you. Oh, I got in.
Yay!
Good job,
Zach,
Colleen.
Zach, I couldn't hear you. No, I cannot hear you.
You cannot hear me?
No, Zach. Zach was trying to talk and he's not coming through.
I'm so excited. It didn't take me 20 minutes to get in tonight.
Okay, how about now?
Yes, now you're working.
Apparently my AirPods don't like Windows computers, so we'll just do that. All right.
Hi,
So-
Zach.
Hi. All right, let's see. All right, so it looks like everybody's here, so I will just go ahead and get started. So it is 7:02 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting of the Midvale City Planning Commission to order. I've been asked by Midvale City staff to read the following. This meeting will be an electronic meeting without a physical location pursuant to Utah Code 524207 as amended by HB 5002. I, Chairman Zach Smallwood, as chair of the Midvale City Planning and Zoning Commission, hereby make this determination that conducting the meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. This determination is based upon the fact that the city is unable to ensure compliance with the guidelines and public health protocols mandated by the state's current risk phase. Also, I just want to include this public comment section. So for those items that have public comments as part of them, public comments are read into the record by city staff during the public hearings portion of the meeting. If you would like to make a public comment, please send an email to Alex Murphy at amurphy@midvale.com. When commenting, please limit your comments to 400 words. This is approximately 3 minutes. When read, include your first and last name. Also, if you'd like, you can include the city of residence that you're located, and include the name of the agenda item so city staff know when you want your public comment to be read into the record. Let's see. City staff will read into the record the equivalent of 3 minutes. Your input is important to us, so please keep your comments concise. And with that, is our new Kate taking roll, or are we?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, well, if you would roll, please.
Okay, we'll give it a go. Chair Smallwood,
Here.
Vice Chair Tippett,
Here.
Commissioner Costello,
Here?
Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Snow,
Here.
Commissioner Erickson,
Here.
and Commissioner Benson.
Here.
Yay!
Awesome, thank you. So to keep things moving as orderly as possible, I will ask that everyone in the Zoom meeting, please mute yourself when not speaking. This makes it easier for everyone to hear and for the transcription of the meeting for the minutes. I ask that commissioners wait to be recognized by the, wait, we're not doing that anymore. Let's see. I'd also ask that the applicant state their name for the record before speaking or answering a question. For this meeting, the process, let's see, for this meeting, the process for the item shall proceed as follows. I will introduce the item, followed by a presentation by staff. The applicant will be allowed an opportunity to present. I will then open up the public hearing, in which point we will receive public comment. The public hearing portion will be closed after a motion by the commission. Then we will have any additional discussion, and I will ask for a motion or action on the item. A motion for action will then be made pursuant to set, Then a roll call vote will be taken, and I will announce the decision after that. So with that, we will just jump right in with agenda item number, I never remember. Hold on one second. I think it's just one. Yes, duh. Okay, so agenda item number 1, which is Wesley Robinson with Olympus Contractors LLC requesting conditional use permit approval for a vehicle service use at 7107 South. And I think it's 400 West. In the staff report, it says 400 East. So 400 West, Suite 5.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. Yes, it is 400 West. It's correct in the brief. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, do you see that? Okay, this is for a conditional use permit for vehicle service, 7017 South, 400 West, and suite number 5. Here's your vicinity map. It's just north of 7200, and there's the freeway on the west side of that picture. This is a 1.55 acre site with 4 buildings consisting of about 28 suites total where different businesses are located. The entire area is zoned clean industrial. In fact, everything that you see on that picture is clean industrial zone. And all of the adjacent properties are all engaged in retail and service commercial. Here's a street view, and where that car is on the left, just beyond that is suite number 5. It's currently vacant. And Mr. Robinson is proposing to locate into suite number 5. It's an 1,100 square foot suite, and he's proposing vehicle service. And he provided a definition of what he does, and it is upfitting emergency response vehicles with lights and sirens, prisoner restraint equipment, and camera systems. So for this suite, he intends to pull 2 cars maximum into the rear of his suite to work on them at a time. And there's about 200 square feet of office at the front side of that suite. He's told me that this particular kind of service does not involve any engines, fluids, or exhaust work. He's provided this site plan, and we do appreciate that. We ask this for each of our tenants in a building that has suites. It gives us an idea of the ground truth as it is when he provided this. Sometimes we look at old site plans and they may have had some turnover, but this is how it existed when he submitted his site plan. There are several that are vacant, and there are also several businesses that occupy 2 adjacent suites. So this use, vehicle service, requires 6 parking stalls. The previous use, which expired December of 2019, also required 6 parking spaces. So there's no additional parking requirements for this use. I would make a small note though, because of the vacancies here, the parking, if these are filled in, will become pretty tight in the future, which is why we require these site plans, because we do the calculations based on the use and also the square footage. So in the future, this could be pretty tight. So we require these site plans with each additional use. So we think that this use is compatible with the area. There's no problems with the general plan or the zoning. It's an existing structure, so there's no compatibility issues with buildings adjacent. So we're recommending approval with these conditions. They're pretty standard except for number, I believe, number 4, but I'll get to it. So if there's any changes to the light at that suite number 5, we'll ask him to come in and provide some details. All signs will have to comply with the zone. Applicant's going to obtain permits for any kind of interior, exterior improvements, obtain a business license. And then even though he's not doing any works on engines and fluids, we're going to require that he meets, or that the conditions say that he meets, all storage and disposal of hazardous materials. All vehicle work will be performed inside, and there's going to be no stacking of vehicles outside waiting to get inside because the parking's so tight. So we prefer if Mr. Robinson accepts new vehicles to work on when the other ones can be removed and moved out. So with that, our recommendation is that you adopt the findings and conditions and approve the use. Now, I'd like to say that we sent out 18 notices to adjacent property owners, and we have no public comments for this particular use. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Robinson for any questions.
Great. Yeah, is Mr. Robinson, is that you, Wes?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you all for meeting with me on this. I appreciate all the time that you guys have put into this. Like Jason said, basically, we will not be doing any traditional automotive work in this location. Basically, all we do is install the lights and sirens and the camera systems and prisoner restraint systems. Typically, we have them in the shop less than 2 days, and then we take them out. As far as having excess vehicles here, I work for an automotive group here in the Valley, so I can control the amount of vehicles that comes into the property, and we won't ever have more than the 2 that are in the shop, besides my vehicle and our employee's vehicle up front. Other than that, I can answer any questions you guys have about it. I'd be glad to.
Just one question that I like to ask all the applicants when it comes to conditional use permits is, are you able to comply with the conditions that are laid out in the staff report?
Yes, definitely, for sure.
Great. Any questions for the applicant at this point? All right, I'm seeing a lot of head shaking. All right, so with that then, we will just jump right into the public hearing portion of this item. So again, this is the portion of the agenda that allows any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, or issues. If you would like to comment on a public hearing item, you will be allotted time during the public hearing portion, which is now. Please email your comments to Alex Murphy at amurphy@midvale.com. We will not be taking public comments on the Facebook or YouTube feeds. Again, just to reiterate, when commenting, please limit your comments to approximately 400 words, which is about 3 minutes. Include your first and last name and the agenda item name and or number. So we'll give that just a minute and see if anything comes in. And yeah. I was informed, I don't know if Alex told you because I came in right at 7, or if anybody else did, that we aren't keeping these open for that required or not required. It was never required. That minimum 5-minute time frame. So we don't have to just sit here and stare at each other for 5 minutes while nothing comes in. So all right, well, we haven't heard anything yet, so I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this point.
I move we close the public hearing.
It's been moved.
You're muted.
Second. I second it.
Okay, Colleen got it first. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Can we take a roll call vote real quick, Kate?
Sure can. Commissioner Tippett,
Yes.
Commissioner Costello,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Snow.
Yes.
Okay,
All right, that passes unanimously. So the public hearing portion of this item is now closed. Unless something profound happened in 30 seconds, is there any other comments or questions for the applicant? Okay.
I don't have any.
All right. Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward. I don't have any concerns here. So with that, I would entertain a motion or yeah.
I'll go ahead and make the motion. This is Candy.
Okay.
Regarding the application for a conditional use permit for a vehicle service use at 7107 South 400 West, Suite number 5, I move that we adopt the findings and conditions of approval presented in the staff report.
And this is Colleen, I would second that.
Great. It's been moved by Candy and seconded by Colleen to approve the conditional use permit application. Kate, if we can get a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Costello,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
and Commissioner Tippett.
Yes.
Great. That is passes unanimously. So congratulations, Mr. Robinson, and we look forward to having your business in Midvale.
Thank you all very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Most welcome. Have a great night.
You too.
Okay, so with that, we will move on to agenda item number 2, which is Dr. Randall Roberts with View 72 Retail LLC, requesting conditional use permit approval for an intensive office. Looks like a dental clinic at the address 718 West Coliseum Way. And I believe this is Jason again, is that correct? Yes,
It is correct.
perfect. So take it away.
Okay, how do you view that? Okay, all right. The land use is considered intensive office, but it is a dental clinic, and this is a conditional use permit at 718 West Coliseum, about 500 yards from City Hall. All right, there's the vicinity map. This is an existing 7,000 square foot building. That parcel is 0.57 acres with 133 feet of frontage along 700 West there on the street. It's labeled Main Street, but that's 700 West. This is part of the View 72 retail subdivision, which was recorded March 2012. In October of 2012, there was a declaration of easements. I'll read that sentence just for a second. Declaration and covenants, restrictions, and easements that allows a reciprocal, non-exclusive, perpetual easement for vehicular parking upon, over, and across the parking lot areas located on each lot. Why did I read that? Because these kinds of larger developments that share parking, it's important to establish that easement. And just to the west of this structure is the Staybridge Suites there to the west. There's the street view looking northwest. All of this is zoned Bingham Junction. To the north, the south, and the west is Bingham Junction. Off your screen to the right is Clean Industrial. Regardless, all of the adjacent areas are used as retail and service commercial. There was a restaurant. You see the signs on that building. There was a restaurant, and the license expired December of 2019, so it is vacant. Here's the site plan. There's no proposed structural or exterior modifications. So therefore, we, as previously approved, this building has no issues with zoning, general plan, or any kind of compatibility with adjacent structures. The parking, the lighting, the drive aisles are all fully built out in that parking lot. And there are currently 89 existing parking stalls, and those are adequate for this proposed use as well as the existing hotel. Here's a floor plan. So the building is 7,000 square feet, but net leasable square footage is about 6,200 with 20 different treatment and surgery rooms there. You see in that nice color-coded floor plan that they provided. This use requires 31 parking stalls. The previous restaurant use required more parking stalls, so we're actually going to decrease the parking intensity. And then the declaration of easements that I read earlier is still active and applicable. Here's the landscape plan. This is the same landscape plan that was submitted on the prior approval in 2015. If you can see your screen closely, the applicant has used red ink to show what is no longer existing. And what we suspect is that these trees and landscaping that over time is no longer there. It's usually because it died and wasn't replaced, or it was curiously removed to make better viewing of signage, which does happen. So one of our conditions then is going to require that the applicant just replace the few trees and some of the bushes that were removed or no longer existing. So we sent out 16 different public notifications to adjacent property owners, and there's been no public, we've received no public comments about this use. So here's the conditions of approval. Again, standard signage must meet the Bingham Junction requirements. Needs to obtain approvals for any kind of tenant improvements. Needs a business license. And then again, that the applicant will replace all existing landscaping to meet the previously approved landscape plan. So this is our recommended motion that you adopt the findings and conditions of approval and approve this conditional use. And I believe that there are several applicants attending that may answer any questions about the specific use.
Okay, great. So I'll just ask right off the bat, is Dr. Roberts on the call?
I don't believe Dr. Roberts is. This is Jared Ford with Ensign.
Okay,
I'm here representing them, and Ken Roberts, who is also a part of the project, is also wanting to answer any questions, but
okay. Yeah, I just, like I said in the last item, I just like to get a confirmation that the applicant would be able to meet all the conditions as laid out in the staff report.
yes, we're planning on that. We've already gone out and got a bid for all the missing plant items. We have that in place and plan to move forward with that as soon as we're approved.
Great. Anything else that you'd like to add to the staff presentation or anything like that?
I don't think so. I appreciate Jason, the way he described it. I mean, aside from that, they perform general dentistry work here, specializing in some implants. It's a great location, adjacent to the Staybridge Suite. Sometimes they have out-of-town folks that come in and stay overnight, and so they're really excited about the location and think it'll be a great fit.
Perfect. All right. Any questions from staff for the applicants at this point?
No?
All right. With that, then I will open the public comment portion of this item. This allows any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, or issues. If you'd like to comment on this item, you will be allotted time during the public hearing portion of this meeting. Please email your comments to Alex Murphy at amurphy@midvale.com. We will not be taking public comment on the Facebook or YouTube feeds. Again, when commenting, please limit your comments to 400 words, which is approximately 3 minutes. Include your first and last name, and if you'd like, you can include the your city of residence, and the name and or number of the agenda item that you're commenting on. City staff will only read into the record the equivalent of 3 minutes. So please be concise with your statements. So we'll give that just a minute or two or a few seconds. I'll say, just as a personal note, I'm excited. I'm glad something is going to be going in there. I live just on the other side of the tracks, pretty much. And I've seen it try to be 2 restaurants now, and both times have not gone super well. So all right, so I'm assuming we haven't gotten anything yet, so I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing portion, public meeting portion.
This is Colleen. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Dustin,
This is-
second.
Okay, it's been moved by Colleen and seconded by Dustin to close the public hearing portion of this item. Kate, if you would take a roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett,
Yes.
and Commissioner Costello.
Yes.
All right, so the public hearing portion of this item is now closed. So yeah, are there any other questions for the applicant? This seems another one pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, then I would entertain a motion for this item.
Okay, I'll make a motion. This is Colleen. Regarding the application for the conditional use permit for an intensive office use at 718 West Coliseum Way. I move that we adopt the findings and conditions of approval presented in the city staff report.
Dustin, second.
Okay, it's been moved by Colleen and seconded by Dustin to approve the conditional use permit. Kate, if you will take a roll call, please.
Of course. Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett,
Yes.
Commissioner Costello,
Yes?
and Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Great, that passes unanimously. Again, I want to thank the applicants for their time for being here tonight. And we look forward to you being in Midvale. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night. All right, so we will just move right along to agenda item number 3, which is Adam Langford with Wasatch Residential Group is requesting a text amendment to the lighting and sign standards in the JB sub area 4 zone. And I believe Alex has taken this one on tonight.
That is
So-
correct.
Take it away, sir.
All right. I don't have a presentation for you, so you just get a look at me today.
Disappointed.
So, as the chair mentioned, this is a request from Adam Langford with Wasatch Residential Group to modify the lighting and sign standards in the Jordan Bluffs sub-area 4 zone. Wasatch is the sole owner of property in this zone, and I lied. I'm actually going to share my screen for a second so we can talk about it. That sub-area 4 is this area in Jordan Bluffs. This is that northeast corner where Wasatch is currently finishing up 2 multifamily residential projects, and then soon, in air quotes, starting a 3rd over on the last corner. This zone was one that was written pretty quickly back when Wasatch purchased the property from Gardner. And so we found, as we've gone through these processes, we found a couple things that are missing or we'd like to see tweaked. And so that's what this text amendment is for. First, for the lighting changes, this amendment proposes a couple exceptions and then makes one kind of format change. The exceptions would be to allow a limited amount of uplighting, and that's intended to be used for architectural, landscape, or artistic uses. That's left deliberately vague so that we're not making a call about whether something is architectural or artistic or not. We just set a cap at 2,500 lumens per acre. It also exempts streetlights, whether they're on public or private streets, from the overall maximum output. That gives a little bit more leeway when new streets are being proposed. And then exempts string or bistro lighting from the shielding and down direction and similar requirements. It's really hard to keep a string light pointed down and shielded all the time, but they're the kind of lights that people like to see in public spaces, so we want to make sure that they can happen. On the signage side, we've got a few other changes. The first would be allowing larger banner signs. Currently it's 48 square feet. This change would increase it up to 80. So you're looking at an 8x10 rather than an 8x6 sort of temporary sign. Wasatch specifically requested that we allow temporary construction fencing to have banner signs on it and exempt those banner signs from this maximum limit. That's a change that staff doesn't necessarily support. And so we'd like the Planning Commission to kind of consider whether that's a worthwhile pursuit, and in the recommendation to the council, recommend whether it should be included or not. Some other temporary signs are also added, and that includes things like balloons or other inflated signs, feather flags, regular flags, etc. And those are allowed for up to 30 days per quarter. That's an extension. The current ordinance allows 14 days per quarter. So this would more than double the amount of time that those temporary signs could be used. And then finally, some changes to the grand opening signage are contemplated as well. Most of our zones in the city, the commercial and mixed use zones at least, allow grand opening signage for 30 days within the first 90 days after a business receives a certificate of occupancy. It does not address what you do when a business or a project receives multiple certificates of occupancy. So like an apartment project, for example, would get a certificate of occupancy for each building. And that created some questions in the beginning. So we've added some clarifications in there that say this grand opening signage can be used for a longer period of time when you have a project that receives multiple certificates of occupancy. That's it. Pretty straightforward changes. As I mentioned earlier, staff's on board with all of them except that temporary construction fencing proposal.
Yeah. I ask a question on that.
Mhm.
I don't quite understand. Does that mean that anytime they have any kind of like a fence surrounding the project, that they can put signs all up along that?
That is the request from Wasatch, yes.
Okay.
That's if you'll, I don't know if you guys noticed when the phase 1 project was under construction there on Center Street in Bingham Junction, but Wasatch had the temporary construction fencing up. And I think originally they just had plain banners in there to kind of keep the dust down and to screen the site a little bit. And then they added some banners that were basically advertising for the project, trying to get people interested in leasing it. And so that's what the request is for, is to do that on a longer term basis explicitly in the ordinance with very little in terms of limitations.
My only problem with that is that depending upon what materials they use to make it, and is it going to look cluttered?
Well, there might be a middle ground in there somewhere.
That what?
There might be a middle ground, like recommendation for how to approach that if the commission wanted to do that.
Well,
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So I'm wondering, do we allow temporary signage on fences currently? Like,
yes.
Okay.
So that banner, the 48 or 80 square feet as proposed, is allowed on each building wall and each street frontage. So currently the zone doesn't allow anything, but if we applied the ordinance as it's written in most of our other zones, it would say 148 square foot banner per street frontage. So you can get one on each street side, and then you can do one on each building side too.
All right. So is the applicant here? I think I see him. There we are.
I'm here.
Hello again. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. All right. So, anything you'd like to add to Alex's presentation, or?
No, the only thing I would add, I just sent Alex an image of the construction mesh that we're talking about. Alex, did you get that? Would you mind showing that to the Planning Commission if you received it?
Sure. Give me just a second.
So I can walk you through where Wasatch is coming from on this. First of all, all the communities we've built in, all the states we've built in, we have never had a city come back and limit or have a problem with any type of screening like this that we're doing. Typically, when you have a construction site, you fence it off with chain link fence. Sometimes the construction group will put up constructed mesh that's kind of green, or sometimes it's orange, but it's not new. It's old and tattered. And so this is really typical of most developments. What you do is you put up brand new printed images, elevations, you show off the amenities. It's got somebody maybe working out in the gym, those type of things. And it really does two things. It helps screen with brand new printed images. But yeah, it does help us market the project. But I mean, in our opinion, it looks much better than just chain link fencing or old tattered mesh.
Yeah.
new, and like I said, we've never had a city feedback on this just because it looks so good.
Yeah.
And it does screen the construction, from that floor and that ground level. If you could see all the debris and equipment and everything on the other side, it would be much worse. So we feel like, especially when it comes to screening.
Well, now that I can take a look at this, it looks a lot different than what I imagined.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it at all.
Yeah. I'm not either. And I guess in my mind, I just visioned something completely different than what you're showing. And looking at this, I can certainly see, that.
Yeah. And it's always brand new because it's printed for that specific project.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And where's
Adam,
this project? Why don't I have this here? Jeez. Yeah. All right. So let's real quick. Have you been able to read the staff report and be able to comply with all the conditions that?
There
Yeah.
aren't any conditions
Oh,
because of the
sorry. Just
recommendation.
all the recommended stuff.
Yeah, Alex and I, we've gone through the ordinance, so we're on. It was just that question about the screening.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Langford at this time?
no, I appreciate his input. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Bart.
Just a kind of a general question. When it says it's temporary fencing, is there a limit to how temporary it can be, like 90 days or I'm just curious on that.
We don't, I can answer that for us, Adam. We don't have a definition for what temporary fencing is, and it's going to depend on the project. Some projects will require it for many months. Some might only need it for a few. So that's a little deliberate.
Well, I like the idea though. It looks good.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So with that, I will open up the public hearing portion of this item. This is the part of the agenda that allows for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, or issues. If you'd like to make a comment on this item, you'll be allotted time during this portion of the meeting. Please email your comments to Alex Murphy at amurphy@midvale.com. We will not be taking public comment on the Facebook or YouTube feeds. When commenting, please limit your comments to approximately 400 words, which is the equivalent of 3 minutes. Include your first and last name. You may also include your city of residence if you'd like. Also include the name and or number of the agenda item that you're wanting to comment on. City staff will only read into the record the equivalent of 3 minutes, so please be concise with your statements. All right, and Alex, did you have any comments?
I have not received anything on this one.
All right, then I would just entertain a motion then to close this public hearing portion.
This is Candy. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Robin. I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Kate, if you would take a roll call vote, please.
Yes. Commissioner Tippett,
Yes.
Commissioner Costello,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Snow.
Yes.
Great. That's now the public hearing portion of this item is now closed. Are there more discussion?
I have a question. I'd
Sure.
like to know why staff doesn't like the temporary fencing. Alex, can you answer that?
Yes. The answer to that is it creates kind of a distracting environment. it does look, I will agree that it looks much nicer, but the purpose of our sign ordinance is to try and remove clutter from the public realm, and putting those temporary signs up basically along streets, and in projects like the ones that we'll have in this zone for long stretches of public streets ends up kind of visually cluttering that area.
Well, I kind of get what you say, but I also think that it causes the community to kind of see what's going on and have interest in those developments instead of wondering what's happening. So I kind of like the fencing, but that's just me.
It is your recommendation. So. The other thing I would point out for your discussion, I expect that all of these changes will eventually end up being propagated across the other zones as well. And in fact, in the next meeting, well, in the meeting we hold in September, we'll be talking about more of these or some of these changes in another zone. So keep that in mind as well. It's probably whatever decision you end up making here, or whatever recommendation rather, will end up probably in other zones too.
I think the key word is it's temporary. These aren't permanent signage or anything like that. And me as a resident, I like to see what's coming in. I like to take a look at it. Just like Candy said, it's more interest, I feel like, then. It's not a permanent thing.
I do have a question about the verbiage as it's reading right now. I know we saw the picture that the applicant sent to Alex, but I don't, and while that's a great picture, I'm not sure that the verbiage wouldn't allow for loopholing in essence, to put up any kind of sign on a temporary construction fencing. I don't know if we could get more specific to, while also being broad enough for projects going forward. It's just that last sentence seems a little bit broad rather than pointing to the picture itself.
So one of the issues that we face when writing sign ordinances is that we can't regulate based on the content of the sign. So we can't go in there and say, your banner can say X, but it cannot say Y. So it does end up, whatever time, place, and manner restrictions we put in place have to be content neutral. So it is deliberately written that way, because the banner could be an advertisement for the project, or it could be somebody saying, you know, we hate Midvale, Midvale sucks, and we can't really distinguish between the two. I wouldn't expect anybody to do that, especially not Wasatch. We've got a good relationship with them.
Sure, and not just talking about content of the sign, but overall like materials or size. I know that it's basically saying that the banner size isn't included in this, but it just, I know it's vague on purpose, but it just seems like we could get something that we really don't want to.
So what are you envisioning as problematic?
Midvale sucks. That would be problematic.
I already said we can't do that. So
What if
Well,
have to be-
why can't you state it? Why could we not pass something that said specific? The sign has to be specific to the project.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court came down a few years ago and said we can't do that. That's basically
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yep. It was what was that? Zach, do you remember the name of that case?
Reed versus the
Reed,
town of
yes.
Gilbert.
Yes, that's the one. So when we enact sign ordinances, they have to be content and viewpoint neutral. So we have to say, whatever the sign says, it can go up as long as it meets these construction standards. So what this says here is banners can be placed on temporary fences without any sort of limitation on size or duration. They do still have to be kept in good condition, so they can't fall to pieces. If they end up getting torn or falling apart, then they need to be replaced. But that's about all we can do if we allow that type of sign.
And that's where my concern comes in there, is that because us as a city pretty much we can't govern what is on the signage. So yes, we can take, and this is always my difficulty with taking text amendments by a specific developer. No offense, Adam. But they are looking at what they currently do, and we have to look at as a zone-wide thing. So if anybody was putting up anything and they wanted to put up a construction fence, and they can put up any signage, we're in essence saying that they can put up any type of signage they want on that temporary fence, while they are building or developing whatever it is that they're doing. So that does concern me to a point. And I would rather stick on the side of caution there. And yes, it looks nice, but at the same time, green mesh doesn't matter, and then it's temporary anyway. So that's kind of where I sit, but I don't really get a vote or say in this. So, well, I get a say, but not a vote.
If we were to say it was like integrated in a visual barrier, is that being too specific, saying that it would need to be doing double duty?
In addition to saying we can't restrict what people say, we also can't require them to say something on the sign.
Sure, so they could have a visual barrier that they print on, or they could not print on it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not understanding the flaw that you're trying to, I guess I'm not understanding the flaw that you're seeing.
What if we made it to where it had to relate to the permit that the temp fence is up for, and then we limit no advertisement for maybe subcontractors or something? It has to be for what the permit is pulled for.
That gets back into that content based. So we have to say, if we're going to allow the banner, we can't put anything in place that dictates what the banner can or cannot say. So we would just say, you can put a banner up. Here's the conditions under which you can put it up. It's in this case, 80 square feet mounted to a wall or a fence, with the exception that temporary construction fencing doesn't have the size limit of 80 square feet. That's about it. So if you want to allow the type of sign that we saw a few minutes ago, then we also have to take the risk that some people might put up things that we don't want to see, and we can't regulate based on content. So we would say we get the good with the bad, and that's the developer's right, unless we want to try and dictate no signs. Basically.
So our office is up in Holiday, and there's I believe it's townhomes or apartments, whatever it is going up, and they put a sign up on the fence similar to what he'd shown. And it is definitely better to look at that versus nothing, in my opinion.
But again, that still is my argument, though, is that we can take into account that and assume that everybody's going to be a good actor, or we side on caution there. And I'm more apt to side on caution there. And I mean, a green mesh sign or barrier isn't going to elicit any feedback. I don't think. You wouldn't necessarily think it's ugly because you probably wouldn't notice it because it would just blend into the environment at that point.
So what are we considering this sign? If it's see-through and say it has 1-inch holes, but if you stand far enough back, there's an image. But if you stand up close, there's no image. I don't know how to explain that.
So we're not proposing to change the definition of a sign.
Okay.
So a sign, let me read it to you. Hold on. Sign happens a lot in the ordinance, so we've got to get through there. So a sign is defined as any words, letters, parts of letters, figures, numerals, phrases, sentences, emblems, devices, trade names, or trademarks by which anything is made known, such as are used to designate an individual, a firm, an association, a corporation, a profession, a business, a commodity, or product, which are visible from any public way. It also includes structure supports, lighting system, and attachments, ornaments, and other features intended to draw the attention of observers. So it's a broad definition.
So if you bought this green screen from Ferguson Supply and Ferguson had their emblem and their name printed on it every 5 feet, we wouldn't allow that.
That is technically a sign, yes. We haven't ever gotten into prohibiting those.
Because like a silt fence, I can't think of a silt fence out there that doesn't have somebody's name on it.
Yeah, but you're also not usually looking at silt fences from the public road.
No, but I'm
Or
just
drawing
trying to
attention
compare
to.
that.
Yeah. Signs are things that are deliberately designed to draw your attention and visible from the public way.
I can see the bad, but I can also see
Yeah,
I can see more positive than I can bad here.
That's fine. Like I said, it's your recommendation to the council. So if the planning commission thinks that it's in the community's best interest to allow that type of sign, then please go ahead and make that recommendation. I did write in my recommended motion, there's a bold section where you get to choose your own adventure, so to speak, to include or exclude that specific provision.
Alex, can we mandate that it's temporary, or is that already in there?
So you can impose time, place, and manner restrictions.
Okay.
So as far as like time goes, you could set a time limit for those signs. But as I mentioned earlier, that gets a little challenging because
Sure.
projects will have different timelines. You can impose like construction requirements, like it can't be on a permanently affixed fence or something like that.
Okay.
Temporary construction fencing is usually just set on top of the ground, not drilled and posted into it. That we haven't gone that far in defining what this would allow. So if you want to add that sort of requirement or recommendation in there, then we can write something up to do it.
Can we make it to where they have to pull a $1 permit and get approval for what is being printed on this mesh?
Well, we can't regulate content. So we could require a temporary sign permit. That's $10. But all we would do is say, that's a temporary construction fence. That's a banner on the temporary construction fence. It's approved. And that would be it.
Okay.
So really, we don't have any say what they put on this fence.
Yeah. If you want to allow the sign on the fence, then you have to allow any sign on the fence.
could we have so many days? Instead of saying, for instance, it says 30 days to 90 days. Could we change that to 10 days to 30 days?
Well, you could. That would be a lot of work on the developer side, because they'd basically be swapping panels periodically.
But we could put a time limit such as until the project's finished.
Yeah, you could
We
say,
could implement that in there and say the sign has to be removed the minute it's finished.
yeah, you could. So if you wanted to go that route, I'd probably say something like before the first certificate of occupancy is granted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the way it reads, it says 30 days after the final certificate of occupancy for a project.
Well, that's a different one.
Oh.
That's for grand opening signs. So
Okay.
yeah.
I think it's a given that once they are up and running and have a model open, they're going to want to take the temporary fence down.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we'd at least be covered for a time frame, I guess. I don't know.
Can you do a 30-day renewal? So if we didn't like the sign, we just couldn't renew it?
Well, again, we can't regulate on content.
I'm looking for a loophole here.
Throw us the phone, Alex. Jeez.
The standard is time, place, and manner. So you can set a time limit. So you could say removed by the first certificate of occupancy or remove within so
Right.
many days or months or whatever. You can say minimum setbacks from sidewalks. You can say maximum sizes, maximum heights, maximum areas. You can talk about construction methods. So it has to be attached, secured, maintained in good condition, sorts of things. But we can't, I mean, if they satisfy it, then we're obligated to allow it. So even if we say temporary sign permit, which by the way, I wouldn't recommend because those are a huge pain and a huge administrative burden on our end. You could say, temporary sign permit, you have to renew it every 30 days. But then if they come in and say, yep, it's still there, it's still the same thing, we go, okay, it's renewed. And then you're just increasing the burden dramatically on our end for not really getting anything out of it. So if you wanted to impose some sort of limit, my recommendation would be a maximum time frame that's tied to some concrete date, whether it's a certain time period after the permit's issued or a certain time period in the construction process, like occupancy or something like that. Or you could
couldn't we say subject to renewal upon completion? I mean,
well, what do you
verbiage such as, subject to renewal, if the project isn't done and they still want to have the sign up, then we ought to be able to, to allow subject renewal for a sign permit.
Yeah, if you did that, you'd want to set probably a term for the renewals as well. So, maybe it's 6 months from the permit with one renewal or something like that. But quite frankly, that's a lot of extra work. And I don't know that we're really going to get a whole lot out of it as a result.
Now go through one more time what you had suggested.
So you could say, I think what you're referring to is the time limit.
Yeah.
So I had said they can have that sort of signage up until the first certificate of occupancy is issued, or require its removal before the first certificate of occupancy is issued. Now, I don't recall, and even though I say that, I'm not necessarily recommending that you take that route, just describing a possible option.
I just want to hear that one more time.
One issue that arose, not issue, one qualifier I would point out is on projects like the ones that we'll get in this zone and in the zone that we'll talk about next meeting, they're going to get certificates of occupancy while other buildings are still under construction. So then we're going to run into the issue of they want to open the first building, but they've only got maybe half of the property with the fencing down. And do we want to say, well, you have your first occupant in there, so you can't have any more signage on that fencing, even though they've still got 10 buildings under construction that could be worth selling in the same fashion.
Adam, at what phase do you normally take down temp fence?
Well, Alex is right. It depends on the product type. Sometimes it's just one large building with structured parking. Like at Jordan Bluffs, it's several buildings. So we typically always build one construction phase. So one large construction phase. But as one building gets done, we'll move the construction fence to the unbuilt portion, and then we'll keep moving it, as the project gets built. So over time, that area gets smaller, that the fencing, is screening.
So Alex, can we say that they can do it until landscaping?
That could have the same issue. Like on Jordan Bluffs, we had some landscaping installed before all of the buildings were finished. You could say, if you want like a drop dead date, you could say the last certificate of occupancy, and then it can't stay up forever.
They're going to do that anyway.
Say that again?
They're going to do that anyway. They're not going to be keeping it up.
Yeah,
they want.
Yep. That's what I mean. So it's almost, it's I'm throwing out options, but I'm not necessarily supporting any of them.
That isn't even, I mean, that's not realistic. My biggest concern would be as the banner gets worn out and so forth, could we not require them to replace that as, you don't want it to look shabby. So let's say, that would be a good requirement, I would say, to make it look nice. So you're not moving along to each project and having this ratty looking thing. That's my concern.
Well, and that's already in there because banners are required to be maintained in good condition at all times. So if we went out there and found a torn one, we would say that needs to be replaced.
Got you. Okay.
Quite frankly, if you want to allow the signs, my recommendation would be just to allow them as it's written in there currently and not try and set a time limit on there. Because there's going to be too many scenarios that we just can't cover at the moment.
Right. Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Alex?
Yeah.
If we did not permit the temporary sign fencing to go all the way around the fence, could they do other signage, like some other large temporary signs on the property to show what's happening on that property?
As it's written right now, the only options would be banners on the building or on the fence. So once the building is open, then the grand opening signage option opens up, and that would allow more signs.
There was a for lease sign on 7800 right by Bingham Junction. That was just it looked like just a large wood fence that had a for lease perspective building.
Gardner put up on the southwest side.
Yeah. So would that be something that they could put on the property instead of allowing the construction fencing?
That type of fence is not allowed currently. It could be. It's
well,
not allowed on Gardner's side.
I mean, a temporary sign, it would be considered a temporary sign, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but we'd have to define the parameters under which that temporary sign type.
I was just thinking that could be an option, but
it could be. We'd have to go back and develop some standards for it.
I just look at it as if I'm a developer building a multi-million-dollar project, I am not going to talk crap about the city trying to lease units or sell units.
Yes.
I'm going to sugarcoat it and cherries on top. I mean, I'm going to sell this thing.
Well, and I get that, but what if you're a small developer and you just have a small piece of property and you're putting in.
So, I mean, you could bring up this again, as Alex was mentioning, this could become something that gets expanded to other zones. So, I mean, we're looking at potentially, tobacco resellers or tobacco, sales establishments or any other type of retail establishment. And so we have to look at it holistically, not just as this one developer or
but what's the downside?
And it's still a temp fence. It's still temporary.
Yeah, what's the downside of allowing him to advertise that this is a nice place, or to have somebody advertise that we're building a tobacco store? What's the downside? As long as it's temporary, there isn't a downside.
And the thing is that because it's temporary, why does it matter? Why do they need to advertise?
I look at it as I'd rather see that picture he showed me than bobcats and trash and dumpsters. And
absolutely,
it keeps the city looking better during the 6 to 12 month process of getting a first phase done.
I agree.
Probably like 24 months.
Okay.
I still agree.
I'm a home builder. It takes 6 months.
Yeah. Some of these projects do take a bit longer. Like for example, if we were to allow this type of sign on the Zions project, then you're looking at like 18 to 24 months of signage. As it's currently written, there'd be no deadline, no time limit for how long that could be up.
But it has to be kept up.
I'm guessing that Zions project will probably want to have signage.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's really the question is,
Yeah,
do we want to allow that type of signage on the fencing? And I've given you my reason for not supporting that particular recommendation, but also I'm not gonna be upset if the planning commission decides to recommend something.
Oh, I'm worried you'd be mad, Alex. I'm just
I
so worried.
know, I know. I say that as in, it's not necessarily the strongest opposition to this sort of proposal. It's a soft, very soft opposition.
I think the pros outweigh the cons, in my opinion.
I do.
Mm.
Let's vote on it. Let's go.
Yeah. Get this
was
going.
this a public hearing matter?
Yeah, it's already been
No.
open.
It's already been closed, if I remember.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was, but wasn't it? Okay, it was so long ago, I forgot.
You big baby.
Okay,
Would you like me to share the motion so you can see it?
Yes.
Let's put it on the right. There. Choose your own adventure.
Hmm.
It's basically the with or without. So
This is Dustin. I'll make a motion. I move that we forward a recommendation to the city council to adopt the proposed text amendment to modify lighting and signage standards in Jordan Bluffs sub-area 4 zone with the proposed temporary construction signage.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to forward a positive forward a positive recommendation to the city council with the proposed changes. Kate, if you would take a roll call, please.
Commissioner Costello?
Who?
You.
Costello?
Oh, yes, yes, I vote for it.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Snow?
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett?
no,
Okay, the motion does carry 3-1. So that will be forwarded on to the city council for action. All right. So with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is the discussion on Jordan Bluffs Pod A, concept plan for RSL Academy training facility.
So this is a revision to the one that the commission saw earlier. And I'm going to let Adam kind of explain what's going on here before I dive into the memo that I sent out. Adam, you want to take that away? You're muted and off.
I'm back.
By the way, I can share any of the images that you sent over if you want me to.
You want to go to the site plan? We'll just kind of walk through those.
Do you want the civil or the landscape?
Yeah, just go to the black and white civil. I just want to walk the commission through this real briefly, and then when I come back for the actual meeting, I'll have the architect, and based on the questions I hear tonight, I'll bring the consultants with me, but I'll bring the architect with me. But we're super excited about this. So we're affiliated with Deloitte Hansen and RSL, and we're acting as the developer on this. So it is through the RSL Nonprofit Foundation, but what it is a practice facility with a outdoor facility also on the south end there. So it was on the corner of Main Street and Ivy before, but that didn't work out. I feel like this is a better location for it. The building fits better here. We don't have a lot of the issues that we had before. So we've got the vehicular access seems to work better. Parking, building, Um, so I can also have more of the program if that's of interest to the commission next time, as far as who's using it and when, and it will be open to the public with stipulations on that, but it will also be used in practice facilities for the different RSL team. And then Alex, if you want to scroll down to the first, there we go. Sorry, I think it's facing a different direction. This just gives you an idea of the amount of green space, and that we are including a trail that runs in front of the building. That's a 60-foot stretch of green space from Ivy to the beginning of the parking. Alex, I don't know if you're point that out. But anyway, so that whole area is, we're trying to create a trail system that will tie into the rest of the development. And then there's also a trail system on the west side that heads south towards that outdoor practice facility and will continue south. The idea is that it would tie into the Homes project that's coming. They'll have a drop-off zone there at the south end of the parking lot. For the outdoor facility. So the indoor facility has offices, a locker room. You want to go down to the elevations out.
Adam, we've lost you.
Come back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're just really, really muffled.
Yeah, I thought it was just me, but it's not.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe my microphone died. I want to scroll down to the next one. That's just another image, and then scroll down. So these are just some ideas. We want to mound that greenscape area out in front of the parking, walking trail, kind of these board form concrete planters out in front of the building. Scroll down, Alex. This is the building itself. We have put as much glass as we can into the building without impacting the structural integrity of the building. You want to scroll down some more, Alex? That's just the architect's kind of rendering of what that would look like. So there's the sides. And yep.
I can put it on anyone you want, but the rest of them are elevations and renderings.
Yeah. You can see it's basically a metal building, and then the front has all the locker rooms, the offices, the entrance. That's facing Ivy. That's where most of the movement is on the building, but like I said, we've added the maximum amount of glass on the sides also. So we're super excited about it. I think it'll be a great addition to Midvale City and to the Jordan Bluffs project.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Adam. On our end, the staff side, we are also pretty excited about this one. I think this ends up being a better location than the corner was going to be. It definitely simplifies the process and project a lot. So we only have kind of a few things to call out specifically in this discussion. The first being, we'll still need to make a couple ordinance amendments for this facility. We'll need specifically to increase the height of athletic fencing up to 20 feet. Soccer balls can go pretty high, so we don't want those to be flying out into other properties. And then we don't currently have lighting standards for athletic facilities or outdoor athletic facilities, so we'll need to add those in too. Adam and I have been working together. Really, I just sent him a draft this week, but we're working on preparing some language, and then we'll present that in the next meeting for the commission to consider.
Add Alex, you're right. And just it's in the staff report, but when we wrote the Jordan Bluff zone, way back when, and we were trying to get the property secure and all of that, we didn't contemplate or anticipate anything like this. So that's why Alex and I have been working on these text amendments, is because we have to amend the zone to allow a facility like this.
Yep. The other aspect of this, as Adam mentioned, they've put in as much glass as possible. It still doesn't quite hit the standard that's written into the ordinance, but staff is authorized to grant reductions for the reasons, basically for the reasons that Adam specified. When we put as much glass in as possible and still can't make it work because there's some structural issue, or it can be handled in other fashions, then we can reduce that requirement. So we're considering and planning to grant an exception to those glass requirements on the front and the south. So the north and the south, or the front and the rear sides. The front is required to have 25%, and it's at 17 right now, and there just really isn't more room to put more glass. The south is supposed to be 15, and it's at 9, and again, there just isn't really room to put any more glass over there. The second exception that we're planning is for parking requirements. Under the base requirements in the zone, we'd be looking at a parking standard requiring over 500 stalls, which is pretty excessive. And as you might recall, when we brought this in front of the commission last time, there was a parking study that recommended fewer stalls and incorporated on-street parking. That study's been tweaked and it's included in the packet. So now it does not propose on-street parking, although we still could add some. But we do have around 200 off-street parking stalls, which looks like it should be enough for the facility. Other than that, we've been working really closely with Adam and with Gardner and with all those involved. And I think that the staff report will come together pretty easily when we bring this back for a public hearing in that large scale master plan. As far as process goes, we do have that large scale master plan. We've got it tentatively scheduled for September, the first meeting in September. And included with that, we've got a text amendment and possibly a preliminary subdivision plat. And then after the planning commission hears it, it'll go to the council for a decision on the text amendment and the development agreement, and then also a subdivision as well. Adam, what are you thinking your timeline is going to be for construction?
Oh boy, when we first started this, the goal was construction by the end of summer. So my guess, where we're going to get our approvals, in the fall and maybe final by December. The construction would start in the spring, depending on the weather.
And then how long to finish?
So the construction of this will actually be through a different Wasatch group that has built these in other cities in the state. I'm not 100% sure. I would say probably no less than 12 months. But I don't know. I know RSL has been wanting to get this done for a long time. Any way they can get it done, they will. Like I said, if the commission would like, just let me know. I'm happy to bring the architect and a representative from RSL to explain more. Any question, just let me know, and I'll bring.
Yeah, this is the time for discussion. If you've got any thoughts, comments, concerns.
I like this location better.
Yeah.
So it works for me.
Yeah, I like the plan of it, I think, much better than the other ones. So that's.
This is Candace. I think the relationship is a lot better. You don't have that pedestrian building relationship that was so kind of troublesome that we talked about, that kind of emphasized the glazing issues that are inherent in this building, I guess. So it seems like a better all around for the placement. I'm just looking at elevations. And it looks like the relationship of the entry, the curb cuts are farther down on Ivy. That's even a better relationship as well. For access.
Yeah, I would agree with Candy and everyone. Candy, Colleen, Candace, everybody. Yeah, I do like this bit better. I don't really have anything to add here.
That's a pretty easy set of comments to go back with.
Yeah. If no one else has any other comments, then I mean, I guess we can just be done with this one, I guess. It's pretty simple, straightforward. Okay.
You bet.
Well, keep working on it and then bring us something. And hopefully it'll go as smoothly as that. Okay. So yeah, I guess we're done with that then because there's no real action on it. So it just feels weird. We're used to going forever and making the motions and things. Okay, so agenda item number 5 is review and approve minutes of May 13th, July 8th, and July 22nd. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
I didn't find anything, but how about the
Don't
rest?
ask Candy.
Hey,
Hey, hey.
I did not find anything other than some weird spacing. Other than that, they look wonderful.
Perfect. Then I would entertain a motion to approve those or deny them or shelve them.
I'll make a motion to approve all of the minutes of the meetings that we just talked about.
Whatever they are.
Well, when was it? The 13th and the,
May
May
13th, July 8th, and July
Yeah.
22nd.
I've got it right in front of me. Yeah, and the 22nd. So yeah, I would make a motion that we pass that.
Perfect.
This is Robin. I'm going to second that.
Great. It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of May 13th, July 8th, and July 22nd, 2020. And Kate, if you'll take a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett,
Yes,
Commissioner Costello.
Yes.
Great. Those passed unanimously. So hooray, those are done. So we will go to agenda item number 6, upcoming meetings and projects from Mr. Murphy.
Yes. First, I want to give you a report from the council meeting last week. The council considered
Do we have to?
I'll be brief. The council considered the Casablanca rezone, the Housing Connect rezone, and the RM25 text amendment that the commission all ultimately recommended approval of. The Casablanca rezone was denied. Most of the comments were basically the same ones that we heard in the planning commission, and the council didn't really go into detail. In fact, on that rezone, they moved to put all of the comments directly into the minutes and just go straight to a decision because there wasn't really any sort of proponent of that project on the council. So that was denied. The parking reduction that was proposed for the RM25 zone was also denied, as I mentioned. The council expressed some concern about reducing parking requirements in any circumstance. And then because they did not approve that parking reduction, they tabled the rezone decision for Housing Connect. and said in the meeting that they wanted the plan revised before they would reconsider rezoning it. We've since talked to them individually about that and pointed out that if that rezone isn't approved, then that project gets hit with a 1 to 2 year delay due to the tax credit applications that are needed for it. So we're actually going to take that back to the council and see if they'll make a decision on it next week on the 18th. And then Housing Connect this afternoon sent me updated plans that are supposed to address the parking issue and provide the required number of stalls with last time I spoke to them, a reduced unit count. And so we are going to hold a meeting on the 26th for the Planning Commission to consider that item. I don't have anything else on that agenda, so we'll have a nice and easy one to talk about that project.
So that'll be on the 26th.
Yep. So 2 weeks from today, we'll have that one.
Okay.
Just as a heads up, we're not sending out notice again because the public hearing was already held on that one. We're only going to be reconsidering the conditional use permit and preliminary site plan. Well, that's what we're going to bring back, unless you want to have more things talked about in that meeting. And then in September, we've instituted, I believe I mentioned this earlier, we've instituted a cap on the number of items that we'll take on a particular meeting. September is basically at that limit. We've got another week until the deadline for submittal hits. So we'll see what happens. But we've got the RSL items I mentioned earlier. Jason's got a conditional use permit. We've got a text amendment and a second text amendment for parking on State Street. And then Adam Nash is trying to bring back his rezone and large scale master plan on 80th South into that meeting. So be prepared. That's another one that we're not re-noticing unless you really want me to, because the public hearing was closed. We wouldn't typically re-notice that or reopen it as a public hearing. It'd just be held as an action item. And then let's see, anything else? I'm really trying hard to not have a second meeting in September because I'm trying to take some vacation time and I don't want to put that onto Jason or Jana to run a meeting by themselves right now. So that's my goal. We'll try and bump anything to October if it does come in. And that's about it. We've got Kate's doing a great job with the minutes. We're really happy to have her.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Welcome.
I was excited for the first planning commission.
Yeah. And Jason's doing a great job picking up where he's going. I've got him working on a lot of things internally, so he'll probably end up, we'll probably end up having Jana here more while I put Jason on more internal projects, but we'll see how it plays out. And I'll probably do fewer proposals going forward, but again, we'll see how it goes. No word yet on in-person meetings. We did have a truth and taxation meeting last night that had an anchor location here at City Hall, and we've got some technology set up to allow in-person public comments on Zoom calls. Juan or Matt, correct me if I got that wrong.
You're right.
But we haven't really had any discussions about going back to in-person meetings yet. We're still waiting on that green designation. Is the last thing I was told. So it could be soon, it could be late. I do know my wife, who worked for Intermountain, was her position specifically, she was told to expect to work remotely through the rest of the year. So let's see what happens.
But I'm expecting to.
Yep. We've got a half staff fish in the office at the moment. So I'm clearly here. Jana was in today. Jason was working remotely. We've got 2 days in, 2 days out for our staff. And that's all. Any questions? Anything you want me to work on for you guys?
Alex,
Back in the building.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said, get me back in the building. I don't want any meetings.
You can come in whenever you want. Just wear a mask.
Yeah.
Alex, were we going to go over the bylaws and?
Yeah, I've got that. I've got that on the schedule for October because I haven't been able to put my thoughts into words yet on the bylaws.
Okay.
I've got some of them done, but I want to talk about, or I want to put in there a policy about electronic meetings. And that's constantly changing. So it's been kind of hard to document it. So yeah, I'm planning October and November, we'll go through bylaws. And if we need to, I might just put that as a workshop discussion on like maybe the second meeting in October. And then we can truly dedicate some time to figuring out.
That'd be good.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, back to you, Chair.
All right. So with that,
Oh, could I just ask one favor from you, Zachary?
oh, sure.
Zachary, would you call me up after the meeting? I've got a question to ask you about Murray City.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. I don't want you to give me your phone number in a public meeting.
Okay.
So, reach out. Alex, do you have her phone number? Okay, I'll have Alex give me your phone number and I'll
Okay.
give you a call after.
Okay.
Okay.
What we're gonna do is do something different with our salon. And so we want to go through Murray City, and I know you're on the planning. And so I'd like to talk with you, okay?
Perfect. Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt the meeting but I had to do that while I was still remembering it
That's all right.
and before we hung up.
Right? Okay, so with that, then all of our items are done, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn our meeting at 8:33 PM.
And I
Any opposed?
second it.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any opposed? All right, then we're done.
Okay.
Good night,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye.
y'all.
See ya.